here joining us for Career Day 2023. My name is Emma Delanoy, and I am a team lead here with Career Services at SNHU. I am here today to facilitate this session and compile your questions for a 15-minute Q&A session that will occur at the end of this presentation. So keep your questions, keep them coming, feel free to post them. Move on. Before we get started, we do have a few important announcements. So again, this session is being recorded. There is no obligation to have your camera on or use the chat. So only if you feel comfortable to do so. But also note that your microphone will remain muted throughout the entirety. So if you have a question, post it in the chat for us and we'll get to it. Captions are available by selecting the More button at the top of your Teams screen and selecting Turn on Live Captions from the drop-down menu. The chat box will be available throughout the session. We encourage you to type in any questions that you have there. And please refrain from using inappropriate language or sharing any offensive content. Please do not photograph, screenshot, or record anyone in attendance. We all want to have that mutual respect as we learn and grow together today. Teams offers helpful presentation options like changing the written language of the slides and advancing the slides at your own pace, which won't impact anyone else's viewing experience. If you do move the slides, return to the current slide by selecting the red box that says Sync to Presenter. Regarding access and accommodations, your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It's our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the appropriate office. So for online students, contact the Online Accessibility Center via email at oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. Campus students can contact the Campus Accessibility Center and can be reached at cac@snhu.edu or phone 603-644-3118. And SNHU staff and faculty can contact the Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. And now I'll introduce you to Rich, Lisa, and Jason, who will be presenting this session, The World is Your Oyster, regardless of your choice of major. So first, Rich Grant has been a business career advisor with SNHU since 2014. He began his career at LL Bean and came to higher education in 2004, working at the University of Maine, followed by Thomas College. Rich earned his master's and bachelor's degrees in business from the University of Southern Maine, and he now works remotely from Southern Maine with office assistants Cosmo and Lily, who are great except for the cat fur on the keyboard. Next, we have Lisa Sinelli, who is a passionate career advisor at SNHU, who started her career helping organizations find exceptional talent while assisting job seekers in finding meaningful employment. Being a recruiter, HR professional, and manager, and more recently, an entrepreneur, has been valuable in shaping her ability to work effectively on a team to support organizational initiatives. Lisa has a BA in psychology and an MS in human resources counseling and has engaged in continual professional development throughout her career. She absolutely loves supporting SNHU learners and university initiatives. And before starting as a career advisor at SNHU in 2015, Jason Whitney served as an internship coordinator and employer relations specialist for 10 plus years at UNH. He helps students and employers tell their story and connects talent to learning opportunities, internships, and jobs. Outside of work, Jason enjoys reading, hiking, playing guitar in his band, and crispy bacon. And now I'll turn it over to Rich Grant to kick things off.
All right. Thank you so much, Emma. Do appreciate it. And welcome to everyone. I really enjoyed reading through the chat box. It's awesome to see where everybody is. And welcome here. So, first of all, a quick interpretation of this title, World is Your Oyster. And you may have heard that expression anyway, but through a career lens. There are so many possible opportunities out there for you. And as career advisors, we believe you can achieve anything in your career that you set your mind on, and also that you work hard toward. So during this next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about the relationship between your career and academic degree, as well as other important factors related to career success. And then Lisa's going to talk about career assessments and other methods of self-reflection, helping you learn more about yourself. And then Jason's going to wrap it up with learning more about career options that are a good match for you. And actually, the final piece, we're going to leave time at the end to answer any remaining questions. We may answer some within the chat, but we'll have some time at the end. So sometimes your degree is going to lead you to a logical choice for a career. We're going to get into all of that with examples. But we'll also talk about where you might work in a career field that's different than what you studied. So my main message over the next 5 minutes is you have a lot of leeway, a lot of flexibility in your career path, regardless of what you study. Ideally, you want to leap from a degree to a job in your chosen career field. Sometimes that path is clear, but oftentimes you could go in many different directions. Hopefully not that down arrow right there, but I guess the point being is that you're not locked into any one course of action. So sometimes our careers follow a steady path, onward, upward, but always be ready for those ups and downs, the twists and turns that a lot of us do experience. And you might decide to change careers or change your major, maybe both. And while these transitions can be stressful, potentially anyway, they can also result in a new career direction for you. One of my coworkers, Mark Schappert, created this 4 pillars model of career success. It's a good framework about talking about careers in relation to academic degrees. But it's also a good illustration of what's involved when we get questions like, what can I do with my degree? Or you might be asking that yourself. Well, at the base of the pillars, you see that your degree is the foundation. But as far as what you can do with your degree and how do you achieve success, really hinges on these 4 success factors. First of all, having a well-defined career target in mind. So Lisa's and Jason's part of the presentation will help you answer some of that, or at least point you in the right direction. But also be sure to consult with a career advisor at SNHU. And throughout the presentation, we'll provide our contact info. We have a handout at the end, also with our contact info. Now, the next item, experience, that's really important to employers. They really look for that. But not just work, but think about experience that you've attained through volunteering, internships, projects, just independent things that you do on your own. Then the third, whether you're working now, maybe you're looking for work, no matter what the case, and Jason's going to get into this as well, building and maintaining relationships with people, that is the key to success. So your network is always important, even after you land that dream job. Then the final item there, employers look for a combination of qualifications. So again, not just the degree, but hard skills, soft skills like problem solving, communication. And also they look at personal attributes like positive attitude, active listening, willingness to negotiate and compromise, just to name a few. At the end of the presentation, we're going to share a handout. One of the links is to an excellent article. I'd recommend reading it as far as what employers look for. It's called Top 3 Things Employers Look For. Now, sometimes academic degrees are closely aligned with careers. And generally speaking, and I'm going to be speaking generally, there's no one thing set in stone here, but consider a close alignment if you're looking to get into a career field that requires specialized knowledge or licensing. So a few examples I have on the screen here: accounting, engineering, teaching, being a police officer, or a scientist. But again, important to note, there are exceptions in all these cases. For example, some accountants did not major in accounting, and then you might see an accounting graduate going to work in a different functional area within a company. So as I mentioned before, and I want to keep emphasizing, you're not locked into any narrow career path. So again, the world is your oyster. Now, similar to this the previous slide that I just showed, again, very generally, nothing absolute here. But the point is, you don't necessarily need to complete a specific program to get into fields such as the ones on the screen: higher education, communication, history, business, or photography. Important point though, I'm not dissuading you from studying that. I mean, if you already, and I know there were a couple of people mentioned being in communication, don't switch your major based on what I'm saying, because clearly you're going to gain a lot of valuable knowledge by doing so. I guess I'm suggesting that you don't necessarily need to be in those degree programs. So this chart here, I know it looks like quite the hot mess here. This is from Williams College, Professor Devadas. What he did is he analyzed career outcomes of his college's alumni over a several-year period. It's an interactive model. We're going to provide the link in the handout. And I'll show you a couple more slides where it becomes a little clearer, but basically you can select a degree, the degrees being on the left side of the chart, or a career field on the right. And what happens is it'll line up with, for example, here I selected banking and finance on the right side, and the lines point over to what Williams College graduates had studied. Now here's a short list just based on a rank ordering. The thickness of the lines indicate, for example, top to economics and political studies, history though, English, a few others. And then going the other way, when I click in this model on history, you'll see the various career paths. History graduates went into law, banking, education, healthcare, sales, and a few others. So again, this link will be in the handout that we will share at the end. So in summary, earning a degree is important, but by itself, it's not going to guarantee you a job in a new career field. As mentioned before, with the 4 pillars, there's a lot involved. So think holistically, consider the big picture, develop, continue to grow your knowledge, skills, abilities, experience, and most importantly, your personal and professional relationships. And remember, no matter what you get your degree in, you're not locked into any narrow set of career possibilities. So again, we emphasize that the world is your oyster. The final bullet there is, don't feel that you need to necessarily lock in a choice of major too early within your program. You know, you might decide to think about it. You know, you do have 14 general education courses to take. So while you're completing those, you can take some steps. Again, Lisa and Jason will get into some of the career exploration pieces before you need to necessarily jump into a whole new degree at the very beginning. Now, you may have experienced this, you know, sometimes friends, family, they're going to pressure you about like, oh, you ought to do this or you ought to do that. But you really do need to find the career path that's a true fit for you. So don't become an accountant just because your family member since 1912, they've always been accountants, or you might hear somebody say, oh, you'll never get a job if you study that. You know, don't try to let the negativity sway you. And also if somebody says, you know, what kind of job can you get with a sociology degree? Just tell them whatever I want to do, whatever I decide to do. And as career advisors, we're right with you, supporting you every step along the way. So now I'm going to pass this over to Lisa Sinelli. It's all yours, Lisa. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rich. Absolutely right. So much great content there. And welcome, everyone. Happy Career Day 2023. We are thrilled that you can be with us today. This is our all-time favorite day of the year that we get to be and interact with you. So we really mean that profoundly. Thank you so much for being here. And just quickly, if everyone could just pop a yes or no into the chat if you're engaged with us. How many of you have taken a career assessment within the last 6 months? Yes, excellent. Yes, 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 yes. I see a lot of yeses here. Excellent, excellent. And just a few no's. Fantastic. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I have great news for all of you. You yesers, this is great. There's no limit to the amount of assessments you can take, and that information is still valid and it is dynamic. So continue to assess, continue to get to know yourselves. Those of you that are claiming no, please, please, please make that on your to-do list one of your top items as you conduct your job search. So many of us start a job search with the external focus, which Jason will discuss in just a bit. Yet some important questions do require an internal focus. So self-assessment is the first and most important step in choosing an occupation or major, planning your career, and starting a job search. So you might ask, why is self-assessment the most important step? And the answer to that is you are unique, and your job selection process should reflect that uniqueness. So the starting point in the career development process is identifying your skills, your values, your interests and preferences, really to determine what types of positions are of interest to you and what will be the best fit. So self-assessment can be extremely helpful for answering several questions pertaining to your career, like how do I find the most rewarding career field for me? How do I use this information to get a job right away? How can this information help me to perform better where I am now and where I'd like to be in the future? And although there are several self-assessment tools available, A-Way-To is a career assessment tool that we offer to our learners to assist with exploration. The results provided by this tool serve to assist you with deeper reflection, such as identifying your interests. So think of interests as areas where people are more engaged, and when they're more engaged, they're willing to learn. They're happier, and that promotes further exploration. The A-Way-To career assessment tool can also help you identify your inclinations. So think of inclinations as areas that people are inclined to think about or solve problems around. The A-Way-To career assessment can also help you in the area of values, and think of those values as job characteristics that support your success in the job. You know, thinking about skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, you are unique. So take the time to celebrate you. There's no need to take notes. We'll definitely include a link to some great articles and resources in your handout. But certainly take time to celebrate your strengths, responsibilities, skills, and other tasks in the role that you'll be performing and what you do well. Celebrate your areas for improvement, tasks or skills that maybe you can improve upon, and a potential plan to do so. Celebrate your values, any areas of your role in the company you believe are important, and any professional beliefs that you strive to uphold. Celebrate your goals. Set goals regarding what you'd like to achieve and, what you'd like to improve upon, a skill set, or becoming more confident in your current role. Celebrate your achievements. Accomplishments are those previously set goals that you reached during your time in the past, whether they're academic or professional. And remember, communicating and articulating your interests, skills, achievements, and values to an employer is critical to a successful job search. So now I would like to hand things over to my bacon-loving colleague, exceptional Jason, to discuss more external considerations while job searching. Jason?
Thank you so much, Lisa. And yes, folks, I am a fan of bacon. It's kind of what I do. So just to say thank you and welcome again. So Rich and Lisa shared some really great content about how do you begin to consider your options with your major and how your skills and values will influence your career choice or your job choice. So I'm kind of the third leg, I guess, of the relay team here. So I'm going to be talking about using people in your life, your network, to engage with these ideas about, well, what do I want to do? What do I want to pursue? And that's what I'm going to talk about for the next few minutes. So one of the things that we talk about as far as your career search and like building and planning a career, we use these things called design thinking principles. And you could sum up design thinking with that phrase that you see on the slide in front of you: get curious, talk to people, try stuff. That really summarizes the whole process. So what's most important is that it's repeatable. You can plug in at different points, and it's something that's very flexible that you can adapt to any point in your search. So we've talked about majors and how that is a part of jobs and careers you can pursue. It's not everything. It doesn't equal necessarily a job, as Richard kind of alluded to. I was an English major, and everyone said, "Oh, Jay, are you going to teach?" I said, "Nope." "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'll figure it out." And it took me 5.5 years, 2 colleges and 3 majors, but here I am. And who knew that English and the ability to write and communicate was an actual marketable skill? But for our English folks on the line, I'm here to tell you it is. It does work. So once you look at your major, you pick a major, and I'd encourage you to find something that you like. If you are studying something you don't like, it's going to be really hard to sustain it and then even make a career out of it. So find something you like and you enjoy. In talking with Lisa and all the things she had shared as we were preparing this session, and the importance of assessments, like a way to, there's a thing called a DISC assessment, there's the Myers-Briggs Type Personality Indicator, there's Clifton Strengths. All of those things help you be more self-aware and understand, okay, so who am I and what do I bring to a job, which is critical. So as far as the what's next step after you've done those things, it's to ask questions. So remember, get curious, talk to people, try stuff. So the questions will test your assumptions. And I've worked with students for a long time. And as an example, like one student who is a justice studies major, and they want to be a forensic investigator because they like CSI TV show. Like, well, do you know any more about it? Have you asked any questions? Well, no, I love the show, so I want to do that. So you need to get curious, you need to ask more questions. So the resources that you see here on this slide, I'm not going to read all of them. Some of them may look familiar to you, others may not. I would hope that some folks here have a LinkedIn profile. I know many people shared at the start of our session. The ONET and the Occupational Outlook Handbook. The ONET is a big career library, literally hundreds of thousands of jobs. You could type in a job title and it'll spit out the skills needed, the education, the job outlook, the wages, and on and on and on. So if you want a good starting point about, okay, I think I may want to be in social media, or I think I may want to be, a sociologist or work with kids or whatever. So the ONET and the Occupational Outlook Handbook are just really good databases, if you will. They're free, they're available to everybody. That can be a good foundation to ask questions and learn more on the surface about a particular path you're interested in. LinkedIn, I'm a huge fan. We'll talk more about that in a second. You can go direct to company websites. So let's say you know what you want to do and how you want to use your degree, and you know some employers, go right to a company site. Also, use social media. Every, I think, reputable or good company or large company has a social media presence, whether it's on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Another way to do research. So use the resources that are available online to get started and ask some good questions. After you've gotten curious, now it's time to go out and talk to people. So I think some folks here have probably heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So networking, and I'm an old guy, networking has been true since I was in college and before, and it's as true now. So it really is important about the people in your network and your connections. So second part of design thinking is talk to people. One of the worst things that you can do to figure out what do I want to do for a job, what do I want to do for a career, is to do it by yourself. So reality is not here, reality is out there. Reality is experience. You have to go out and engage with people. You'd be amazed how many folks are happy to answer questions if you just ask. So really, really can't stress that enough. And again, Rich is here, Lisa's here, and I love in the chat, and this is my third session today, and it's great to see people in the chat offering advice and helping people in the chat with their questions. So again, ask for help, critical first step, engage other people with your ideas. Again, the SNHU network is vast. On LinkedIn, I think we're over, I haven't checked in the last day or two, but last count, it was well over 200,000 SNHU alumni. That's a massive network, and they're just waiting to be tapped and for you to talk to them. So the talk to people part, and either you can do it through what's called a prototype conversation, if you're thinking in design thinking language, or an informational interview, which is simply you interviewing somebody for information about their job that you're interested in. That's all an informational interview is. We happen to have a really good program again this afternoon, I think at 4 o'clock. Brooke Brigham and Dale Jacobs, two other advisors, are going to go deep into informational interviewing and how to do that. So again, Psychology 101, everyone's favorite subject usually is themselves. So if you reach out to people and ask them, hey, what major did you study to be an engineer? What major did you study to be a nonprofit manager, ... What courses do you think are valuable? I'd love to learn more about X, Y, or Z. Ask people for advice and guidance, and you'd be surprised. Most folks are very helpful and willing to talk about their career and how they got there. The biggest takeaway for you as far as the informational interview is that picture it as you talking to one version of yourself in 5 years. So that could be you in 5 years. You're talking to someone who's doing a job that you want, that you're interested in. They have lived experience. Maybe they've had the job for 5 years, 10 years, or 15 years. You don't have that knowledge. You don't have that access. So if you do have these conversations, and don't just have one, send out many requests through LinkedIn or through your personal network and your own social media, and you'll get so many great insights that you can't find anywhere else. All right, so we mentioned the prototype conversation, talking about prototype experiences, and here's kind of why they're so beneficial. So again, that student who wants to be a forensic investigator because they like a TV show, like you think you know. So we assume a lot about many things just on the stuff that we take in. But if you go and engage with particular people in the jobs you're interested in, you will certainly get more information and help to expose your assumptions. Why? Because you want to reduce risk. So when I was an undergrad a million years ago, I wanted to be a teacher. The State University System of New York, in its great wisdom, didn't put me in front of a class until my last semester's senior year. So I was learning about teaching in books and theory. I never, ever stood in front of students. I got there and I was like, wow, I'm not ready for this and I don't want to do this. So by that point, it was too late. So I had to actually change my major. I had to extend my undergraduate stay. It cost me more time, more money. But if I had actually talked to a teacher, hey, what's it really like to do that work? If I had gone and observed a classroom, oh, this is what it's like when you have kids act out. Or if I had actually maybe student taught or did an internship before I kind of got thrown into that last semester, I wouldn't have had so much risk. So again, talking to people now, engage them with your ideas, get great information, and it's one way to sneak up on your future. Again, you could be talking to somebody who is in a job, you have a great conversation, you learn so many wonderful things, and now you're connected on LinkedIn and you maintain that relationship. Like Rich said, it's super important. The relationships in your life can help you get access to jobs. And then the try stuff part of a prototype experience, you start with the conversations. Maybe you go volunteer at an organization in the industry you're interested in. Maybe you shadow somebody, and then ultimate like prototype experience to try something is an internship, getting some field experience. So I mentioned LinkedIn and the SNHU community. So if you're not following SNHU, I strongly encourage you to do that. If you go to our page on LinkedIn, you'll see the alumni there. This was taken a couple months ago, I'm quite confident we're over 225,000 alumni. Again, people that you should reach out to and talk to. And just to kind of bring it home and wrap it up, just really, this process works. Get curious, ask questions, then go talk to people doing the work you're interested in, and then go out there and try it, see if it's actually a good fit. And I think as we get older too, we're afraid of failure. Like, we don't want to take a risk or try something new because, well, what if we fail? Well, you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You have to put yourself out there. Critical piece is just ask for help. Use your network. That includes your career advisor, that includes your faculty. So please lean on the people you know in our community, and then just be persistent and stay positive. A lot of the students I work with, it takes them months to land the job they want. So again, lean on your network for support, and we are here to help you. And now I will turn it back over to Emma.
Yes, I'm sorry. I struggled with finding my mute button there. Thank you so much, Rich, Lisa, Jason. Really fantastic job. A lot of great information and insight. So hopefully if you were taking notes or grabbing notes even from the chat box, to be able to reflect on and then reach out to us, connect with us. We're happy to talk through any of these ideas, reflections, takeaways. But now we'll move on to answer some of your questions. Also in the chat, you're going to find Rich is going to be posting a handout. So he just put that in right there. Great timing. So you should be able to access that link, which will bring you to a handout with all helpful resources there for you. So any questions? I was trying to look. Okay, this is a good one. How do you battle imposter syndrome at a new place? No, Mar, actually, just a side note real quick. Sorry, Jason. We will be having a presentation later tonight at 7 p.m. about imposter syndrome. So there will be more details, but it sounds like Jason has a good idea of where to start.
If you're a new person and you have been hired, they want you there. It's incredibly expensive to replace people. So if you have been hired, you have started the job, even if you've finished your onboarding and it's your 3rd month and you're worried about that probationary interview, like, be confident that you're supposed to be there. They hired you. They made the offer. They're extending you a paycheck, benefits, all that good stuff. And if you are concerned about that, you can either talk to possibly your manager or go talk to a friend. So we all have friends who are working. Lean on the people in your network. Just talk to them like, hey, I'm feeling this. What do you think? Any advice or tips? Also, talk to a career advisor. Again, but if you're there and you've been hired, I understand how it could feel that way. And I've done hundreds of presentations. I still get nervous. I was nervous before I started. But I think, again, you have to have some faith that, well, no, I'm here in the door. I competed against dozens or hundreds of other people, and I got the offer. So again, you're there for a reason.
I concur, Jason. I concur. And I popped in the chat, and I know I oversimplified the notion of fake it until you make it. And just as Jason said, you've been hired, there is interest in you, and really just connect with others in your world that will lift you up, that will remind you of all of your wonderful attributes, because really that's what we need in times like that. Is just a simple reminder. And we all need that. So, and we can't give that to ourselves in all cases. So that's when we need to ask for help, as Jason mentioned in the presentation. Great question.
Very good question, especially because imposter syndrome, sometimes it's tough to avoid. So leaning into it a little bit, reminding yourself, giving yourself affirmations and everything. So
Emma, I'll take a stab at Rachel's question.
Thank you.
And yeah, as far as the previous question, I put in the chat, find mentors. So important, as Jason talked about people, and I mentioned people, very critical. So Rachel, social media, that's one of those areas where you can actually build a lot of skills and experience on your own. Maybe it's volunteering for a nonprofit agency. Hey, I'll manage your Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So as I mentioned before, not just having your degree, but what experience do you have? And I mentioned you can gain that through projects, just stuff on your own. I talked to a cybersecurity student once who created a home network just to show that he had that cybersecurity skill. So anyway, for social media, just look for opportunities to either volunteer, maybe freelance, and that experience will really help you. Hey, see Leonard put in the current count on LinkedIn. And by the way, the LinkedIn, SNHU's LinkedIn page, that's a link in that handout I shared before.
Also back to the switching careers with little to no experience. So just really looking at like those transferable skills. As someone who went from food service industry to counseling, it was like, oh, what does your experience look like? How are you going to be a counselor? So also talking about what you gained in your academic experience and highlighting and marketing that too. So especially if you're in social media and marketing, go into those marketing skills for yourself to advocate for yourself.
And again, just to emphasize, asking for help and reaching out and talking to people. You can't possibly know everything. And I'll say for myself, I'm a generalist. I know a little bit about many different careers, but I've never been a social media coordinator. So I don't know. I can get you started. I could refer you to people in our SNHU community, but you need to go out and do an informational interview and talk to those folks. And they can give you so much good advice. And I'll bet money, a lot of them, there really are very few social media degrees in the country. So I'm sure many of those people do not have a social media degree. And if you are an outdoor ed, maybe you start doing a blog, or you do some freelance work, or you volunteer and do some work for, let's say, the state of New Hampshire or your own state, and you manage their social media for their parks for a couple months or whatever. You'd be amazed if you ask how many people will be willing to give you a shot.
I see a great question. I was actually going to comment on this. And Nomar, you asked, how can I leverage my coworkers to gain more experience in the IT field without seeming annoying? As was mentioned earlier, most people thoroughly enjoy talking about themselves. So the same holds true when you're asking questions about the same career path. There's no bigger compliment than really following in someone's footsteps and being curious about that. So when I have these conversations with learners, they start off with something like, go for the low-hanging fruit first, meaning what is more comfortable for you, what is in your space. So that means if you're currently working and you have the ability to connect with someone, maybe in a different department, say, I'm really interested in your industry. Ask questions. How did you get there? What does your education look like? What does a typical day look like? What are some best practices? What are some things to avoid? And you'll be surprised that people won't perceive you as annoying. Now, obviously, there is a little disclaimer there that you can't hit them up. You can't hit up an accountant in March and April for questions. You really do need to be sensitive to others' time demands and the demands of their job. But outside of that, don't be afraid to ask. And what's the worst they can say is, I don't have time. And that's okay. You move on to someone else. Great question, though.
We need to back up. There was a question before, Asmita. I'll go ahead and read it. She has bachelor's degree in public health, getting a master's in IT, hoping to work in healthcare IT later on. So any tips? What do you think, Jason, Lisa? My thought is having, the healthcare experience, that'll help as far as your network. Do some informational interviews or exploratory. What was the term you used, Jason? Oh, the prototype
conversation. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Anything else though for Asmita?
Well, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Jason, a little bit of a delay. I think really just to circle back what I was sharing prior, is there anyone within your are you currently working? Is there anyone in your network? And let's not forget that can include family, friends, start to outreach those folks and just ask simple questions. Do you know of anyone? It doesn't have to be them directly. Do you know of anyone that might be willing to answer some questions about the best path to get to where I want to go?
Oh, thank you. And we have another great question, which actually was answered by by Jessica. So thank you, Jessica. Great suggestion for Ruthnie, who asked, what can I do in the waiting period after applying for jobs? But being patient after getting some rejection. So any suggestions there for suggestions after you apply?
Keep moving. Don't stop. You know, you might feel confident about getting into the interview, getting the job, but keep plugging away because you never know what's going to happen. Stay healthy as far as, you know, like being patient, the stress, go for a walk. Don't do job search 24/7.
One of the things I think that's really important is to stay organized. So I work with a lot of students who send out 10, 12, 20 job applications, every couple days. And I go, oh, so, and they hear back from someone 4 weeks later, which is not uncommon. So let's give HR recruiters a little grace too. They're either understaffed or some people just have poor follow through, folks. So if you're expecting a response in 3 days, it might take 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So just be organized. So when they do follow up with you, like, oh, this is so-and-so company, and this was the job I applied to 4 weeks ago on this date. So you could stay organized, and that way that reduces your anxiety about, oh, who am I reaching back out to? What did I apply for? So again, pull together an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, but just stay organized in your search. And like Rich said, just take care of yourself, be persistent, stay positive. Again, the job search is a process. It can take months, just being realistic about that. So use your network to help support you in the process.
Great point. And how about changing that lens just a little bit and being patient after getting some rejection? So why don't we change the lens on those rejections and keeping them positive, as Jason said, and saying, wow, maybe perhaps this position wasn't the best fit for me. And bearing in mind through this search and this process that you maintain 50% of the power here, because you, at the same time as the employers, are seeking a great fit for you. And some of you may have seen, my wish for all of you is to work with exceptional people like I do. And that's really important. It's really, really important. And sometimes we may never know why we weren't selected for a position, an opportunity, but just have faith that things are working in your favor. You're showing up, you're doing the work. As Rich said, keep moving on, keep plugging away, and just know that your ideal position is waiting for you. Just never give up in that pursuit.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. So if we did not get to your questions, please contact us. Let us know. We are here to help answer them, especially if you want to talk about your own specific individualized career pathway and search. Do we see any other?
There's one about remote jobs. I just put one link. I would say contact career. We have probably so many other links about remote. There's one more that I'll put in. These might be a little dated.
Alyssa, put a couple in as well to answer.
Great.
Ellie, yep. Okay, well, thank you so much. Again, thank you for being here. You can also, let's see. As we said, Rich had put in the resource link in the chat. I think he might be adding it one more time here for us, so it's a little more recent. Don't forget to fill out the survey we will send to you. Let us know how we did. And as a reminder, these sessions are being recorded. They'll be available on the SNHU Career Services YouTube channel in a few business days. And then also, don't forget to explore the rest of the day. We have a few more great sessions left. As I had mentioned, definitely that imposter syndrome, if that's a topic you've been interested in, but some great sessions left this afternoon and tonight, so 4 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Emma, there you go. I was just going to say to advance. Great.
Yep. And finally, please check out Handshake. So we had mentioned this, you saw this mentioned throughout the chat, but here's a link to it. It's a clickable link. You could click right on it. You can find more SNHU career events in the future. And that is all. So thanks.